Hello and welcome to this webinar on optimizing workplace talent with the Predictive Index. I'm Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer here at the Center for Victory. What we're going to be doing in this webinar today, as far as workplace talent, we'll be talking about how to optimize it, more specifically with the Predictive Index. So this is one of the tools that we use to help our clients make better workplace decisions, but not only that, throughout the whole employee life cycle. So when it comes to onboarding, coaching, performance management, conflict resolution, relationship building, all those things that come into play, working on teams. So I'm going to give you a little framework of that. Some of you may be clients that are watching or listening to this. This is a good refresher, or you could also use this as a refresher for people coming on board if you already have the Predictive Index. If not, if you would like a demo and like to talk more about this, please reach out. You can reach us at centerforvictory.com or through email, eric@centerforvictory.com. So a couple of the things that we're going to be doing today, just a brief overview of the Predictive Index and how it plays into workplace talent. We're going to give you kind of a framework for talent optimization so we can help our employees better understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish. Some people just don't know, and give them a good framework. We'll help you define the job requirements and behaviors for a role. How do we assess that through the behavioral assessments? And then analyzing kind of the behavioral patterns and predictions that we can make. And then we're going to get into more of the coaching, the development plans, how to build high performing teams in your companies, how to maintain them as well, and then how to integrate that. Just some tips on how to integrate PI into your talent management practices. And again, this is for this could be for clients or people that are just getting started out. But again, if you want more information after you listen to this webinar, please reach out. So let's start with a framework of what we call talent optimization. Okay. When you look at this, when we refer to as talent optimization, we look at it from a perspective of what the company's strategy is and what they're trying to achieve. And in between there, you could see in this slide, in between the business strategy and the business results, that is what we're looking at when we refer to talent optimization. We are actually, when I say we, what we do with the Predictive Index is that bridge between that business strategy and the business results that the company is trying to achieve. And if you could break it down and think of it in 4 different buckets, and why I'm telling you this is a great way to explain it to your company. So if you haven't already and you're a client, great way to kind of break it down so people understand, hey, what are we using this for, and how effective are we using this, and just a simple framework that everybody can get on board with. That first bucket I want you to think of as design. All right. Think of design as putting your basic talent infrastructure in place. This is where businesses figure out how the organization should be structured, okay, and how things will get done. Design is where it all begins. This is really aligning your talent strategy with your business strategy, and this is different for each company. It's not a cookie cutter. So we have to look at what the business strategy is, and are we aligning the talent with that business strategy? So it's all about strategy alignment. So in order to achieve your targeted business results, you have to align your talent infrastructure with your business strategy. As you're doing that, the second bucket that I want you to be thinking about is what we call the higher aptitude or bucket. Okay. And I'll go over this because this is kind of what I think is kind of like the gold nugget when you're looking at Predictive Index. This is like the secret sauce. This is what makes the analytics more objective. Okay. Because a lot of people, we get a lot of comments sometimes about, hey, look, how are you going to use this information in the past? some of this information people have felt has been used against them. And when I say information, any behavioral analytic, a lot of the tools out there are good. The great ones have this target baked into them. So when people come in, you know what you're looking for and they get matched up against that. So it's about candidate fit. So to successfully execute on the business strategy, you have to get the right talent in the right roles. Okay, right person, right seat. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this in this webinar talking about that. So that's the higher aptitude. The third piece I tend to like a lot, but it just is becoming a bigger and bigger and hotter topic recently. We refer to it as the inspire aptitude, because we can get you the right people. And if you're that HR professional, or if you're that leader that's doing a great job in hire and you're still not having the results, a lot of people are struggling with the inspire piece now, because it's not just hiring the right person. It's how do you keep that right person? How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them engaged? So I'll give you some tips on that as well. And actually just a couple of slides here. It's how to keep employees inspired, engaged, happy, and really productive. So think of inspire that way. So that's the coaching, that's the development plans. Those are the kind of things that we're talking about when we talk about that inspire aptitude inside talent optimization. And the last bucket is diagnose. Okay, so just to recap, design, aligning your talent infrastructure with your business strategy. Hire, you're focusing on candidate fit to get the right people in the right roles to execute on that strategy. And then in inspire, you're developing employees to maximize their productivity, engagement, retention, development, all those kinds of things. But that's not it. Okay. You still have to continually monitor your talent strategy to make sure it's working. That's where diagnosis and it comes in. It's about monitoring that people data. So I'll give you some examples of that. You need to understand what's working, what's not working, and then take action to make the necessary adjustments on that. And that's why you want to get very good at understanding all the analytics and how they play out inside of your company. Before we do that, before we dive into that, let's just back up. I said we would kind of back up to look at engagement, disengagement. And this is a good visual here. Depending on what you're looking at, most of the research nowadays, currently are saying that only about 33% of people in the workforce are engaged. Some research is even indicating that that 66, 67%, maybe even higher sometimes, is actively disengaged. But we have to understand what gets people to work and what keeps them working. All right, we have a lot of people in the have to. Okay, hopefully if you're watching this, you're not in the have to, you're in what we call the want to. How do you keep people engaged? Somewhere that you want to work. And through Predictive Index, we've done some research to look at that. And there are four main things that either keep people engaged or pull people down. And if we look at it from the disengagement standpoint, those four things, and this is not all, okay, this is not everything that brings people down and disengages. These are the top four. So it's job fit. So this happens when you have poorly defined positions, bad hiring processes, or evolving business needs that could create a mismatch between the employee and their roles. So lack of job fit directly impacts motivation and productivity. Someone who's working in the wrong role, who doesn't have the right support to do their job, is not going to be excited about coming to work every day. Okay. And then if we do this, a mishire can be devastating to a person's performance, but also impact everybody around them, especially if there's high turnover. Second piece there I want you to think about is manager. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in the inspire piece of that inspire aptitude. But when we talk about the manager, the relationship between um, employees and their managers, very critical. And I think we all know that. We've all heard the saying, people don't quit their job, they quit their boss. But a lot of managers haven't been adequately trained to understand. And a lot of times the manager gets that spot just because they've been a good employee, and then now they have to manage people. Okay, so this is about helping that manager understand their people, but if they don't, it really pulls on that disengagement score. The third one is team-based work's more critical than ever, especially when we have all these different ways that we can work now, whether it's in the office, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's completely at home or virtual, but we still suffer from poor communication, not enough collaboration, inability to manage tension that comes with that, with that teamwork. And if you don't have the right team, I mean, a toxic team can really put the company's goals at risk. So you want to take a look at that, and that will bring down and cause people to become disengaged. And the last one, there's culture, or cultural misalignment, is really going to bring people down and disengage them even more. Okay, to be productive and engaged, employees need to feel that they belong. Okay, the purpose. When they feel out of tune with the organization's values, they can lose trust in the leadership. Their own performance suffers, and again, they can create that toxic work environment that's going to undermine productivity and potentially bring other people down. So a little bit of history around the predictive index. If you don't know it, it's a very easy, simple. I found it to be one of the most simplest behavioral assessments out there, as well as being very accurate. And this is the one we use with the majority of our customers. They use other assessments as well, but we're taking a look at it from first, that job fit. So how do people behave? What drives people? Most of the issues that we face day to day inside of companies are mostly behavioral issues. So when you look at the job, again, go back to that job, it's the wrong, it might be a really good person, they're just in a not in the right role. When you're looking at manager, the manager might be a good manager, they might not know how to manage. It might be a behavioral piece when you look at the team, and that could happen in the culture as well. But a lot of times it's like, what happens if we just knew how people were wired, we could do a lot better. And so what Predictive Index does is it looks at what drives people. So we're measuring the drives of a particular individual and or a job, so we can better predict that person's needs and behaviors. So without going too depth into the predictive index, remember, it's just measuring, 4 primary factors: dominance, extroversion, patience, and formality. Why do I introduce this? Because I want you to be thinking about this as you align those job roles up, because you want to think of your job roles. If I'm going to bring somebody in, how do I know they fit? If I need a very extroverted outside salesperson, it's almost cruel and unusual to stick somebody in there that's extremely introverted and doesn't like to be around people all the time. Can they do it? They can. And that's where most people, that's where we misfire a lot of times. I'm not saying people can't do it. What we're looking at is, will they do it, and will they do it well for long periods of time? All right, going back to the engagement. So if I need somebody that's a good listener, I might need somebody more, a little bit lower in dominance, a little bit more higher in patience. If I need somebody who's going to follow the rules, I might need somebody a little bit higher in that formality piece. So think about those roles. One thing I don't want to do, for example, is have somebody that's my quality assurance manager with a low drive for formality and rules. It's probably not going to work. Can they do it? They can. but what's the likelihood that they're going to do it and do it well for long periods of time and be happy? You're going to get a lot of turnover when those kinds of things happen. And so I want you to think about your roles inside of your company. Think about, hey, what do we need? Okay. And then backfill that. So you're creating the target, which we'll get into in a little bit, and then matching that person up or aligning the person as best we can to that role. All right. And there's other things, some of you are already probably thinking, what if they don't fit? Not everybody's going to fit perfectly. Yes, you're right. Not everybody's going to fit perfectly, especially in this job environment. But we can also use these analytics to coach people into the right directions and be more objective in our coaching abilities. So again, what we're looking at, this is a very quick assessment. The predictive index, on average takes 6 or 7 minutes to complete. It gives you everything you pretty much need to know about the person behaviorally. And then that gets matched with the target that we set up for the company. Okay, so the next thing that we wanted to talk about was selecting the right talent. Now, how do you do that? Okay, great question. A lot of people, I think in the past, when they get information from a behavioral instrument like Predictive Index or some of the others out there on the market, the tendency at first, just because we're human beings, is to kind of read that report and make our own assumptions. So this is going to eliminate some of the bias that happens when we do that, if we are being objective with what we're looking at. And one of the ways that we do that is we create a job target. Okay. So what we do, a normal practice of that, at least how I coach folks with it, is to have 3 to 5 people complete inside of the company. 3 to 5 people complete the job target. So it's much like taking the PI. It takes only about 3 or 4 minutes per person extra than would the predictive index. And then what happens is everybody puts in their 2 cents, and then we get back together, reconvene. We can even look at top and bottom performers, have some kind of baseline for the target. And then that's what we do. We create the job target profile based off that assessment. Okay, so those people that should be contributing are typically a manager once removed, people in the leadership team, typically somebody in HR that has an understanding of that position, which if they've been around a great HR person should have a pretty decent understanding of the positions, and more than likely, once they become a client of ours, they've been trained in the analytics. And once that's done, like I said, we reconvene, we get back together, discuss what's going on. Is this what we need? Is this what we not need? And then we create this job profile. And the job profile is created. And what this does is gives everybody a target to shoot for. But what's kind of neat about this is you can literally take some of these keywords that you see on your screen now after the job targets is set and make your job posting a little bit more robust in nature, because what it's going to do is it's going to draw out these kind of people that read this. Okay, so underneath the summary, if you look at the summary there, if you look at the job characteristics, all right, somebody that tends not to be wired that way, they're not going to look at those words and go, oh man, that's a great job. They're going to move away. Others that are wired more like that are going to go, wow, that sounds like a pretty cool job. And they'll tend to read a little bit further down on things. Say, okay, what do you need? What else do you need for this position? Is this a good position fit for me? Okay, so we're using it to attract the right person up front. even before they would apply, anything like that. Okay. But we're also getting agreement internally about what we want. So everybody's on the same page. And I think that is extremely helpful as well. And then when that person comes in, so we set the target. All right. The target set in these little orange bands that you can see. And even if you don't have any understanding of predictive index, you can see that where those orange bands are, that's the behavior that we want. So what we're saying, so everybody's on the same page here, what we're saying is for this particular position, which was the one I just showed you for that engineering director, we're saying we want somebody that's a little bit more assertive, a little bit more social in nature, a little bit more driving, a little bit impatient, and slightly on the side of being detailed, but still bigger picture, a little flexible, very proactive. That's what we're looking for. So when that person comes in, instead of trying to make up questions, things like this, everybody being on different pages, if they're interviewing with multiple people, what this gives us is more of a structured interview guide. And you can see on the left for new candidates that are coming in, and we do recommend, I strongly recommend you having this before that person even comes in. All right. If you have that job target, if you have their results and it matches up like you see on the left-hand side, it's the candidate versus the job. And again, you don't have to be trained in this to see that there's some differences there. But the nice thing about it is the software, the predictive index software, provides behavioral-based interview questions based off where that person fits and where they miss on that. And so then everybody inside the company, if everyone's using this, are asking questions around that. The other nice thing about it is many clients nowadays that have multiple job openings. And a lot of times what happens is people apply for a position, and you can see that in this demonstration here, Alice isn't such a great fit for this position. However, what if she fits the culture? What if we need her on a different team? Well, if you knew that, which we can, if we've created a target, different targets for other roles, we can literally go in there and say, wow, she's got a great resume. She doesn't fit here. What else does she fit? Okay. Instead of telling somebody, hey, look, we don't have, this isn't the right position. Are there other things that this person might consider? And so that's another benefit to having these analytics at your fingertips and go, oh, okay, Alice doesn't fit this job, but there are other positions. Let's give her a call, see if she's interested in coming in and possibly interviewing for a position that she's better suited for. Okay. And again, when we're looking at these, doesn't mean they can't do it. What we're looking for is, will they do it, and will they do it well for long periods of time? Will they stay engaged? This is the way to remain objective. What we want is more what's on the right-hand side. If they don't fit perfectly when we onboard them, so it goes from the interview guide to the coaching guide. So as long as we've established that job target, then that person, and this should be done at least in the first week, if not day one. It's just my recommendation. So if you're looking at the right-hand side with that coaching guide there, the power of this, especially doing it day one, is to set the tone and let that person know what the expectations of the role are, at least from a behavioral standpoint. Especially if you're a manager or a leader that's not wired like that position, it's good to get on the right foot right from the start. So you're saying to this person in this particular, again, we're on the right-hand side here in the coaching guide. This person might have a tendency to be a little bit more aggressive than what we need. And that's up in that right-hand side there. Not horrible, right? But again, what we're trying to do is set the tone early on. Okay, because if they hear it the first time, Now, when we go back and look at things, maybe every quarter, when we're coaching them and doing things like that, it's easier because it takes a lot of the personalization out of it, because you're just saying, hey, look, here's how you are, here's what the expectations of the position are. Just have to move a little bit. This shouldn't be a struggle for this person to move and adapt a little bit. Could be, but shouldn't be too bad. If it is, now you can provide that objective coaching to that person. And you can also see that they might need to be a little bit more detailed. Again, probably not a huge issue, but something we want to be aware of totally up front when we're looking at folks and saying, hey, look, this is just how it is. This is what we know. So whether you're looking at comparing that to your best performers in that position in your work environment, or this is what we expect as a leadership team. Now it takes a lot of the personalization out of it. And I found this to be very effective, because when people tend to get defensive when we criticize each other's performance. Well, how do you know this? How do you know that? Right. And this is a way to really tailor your coaching plans with a person. And again, a lot of managers, this might come natural to people. And I find that for a lot of great art professionals and some great leaders, these kinds of conversations come natural to them. But I will tell you, it doesn't come natural to everybody else. So you might have a good worker that doesn't know how to be a manager. This is a tool that you can give them and equip them to do their job as a manager much better right out of the gate. So they're going to be a little bit more comfortable using a tool like this in that coaching with their individual people that they supervise. And I hope that makes sense, because the other document that we can actually use there is what we refer to as the personal development chart. Love this, especially when we look at, my kids entered the workforce, both of them actually last year. So they both have a year under their belt and doing pretty well. But my mentioning them because their age group, if you again look at the research, is saying that they want more of an environment where they're being developed, where they're being led. This is a great way to start out, and we recommend this, that you start out again, first day, first week. Just sit down with the person and say, hey, look, this is you. You completed this assessment. This is how we use it. Come out of the gate strong with that person. And the other thing it is, I just was actually doing this in a company last week with a young lady who just wanted feedback because she wasn't feeling very confident. She said, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. And I said, well, I think you are if you watch your behavior when you're not in something you're not comfortable with, or when you're comfortable. When you get to the place where you're not comfortable, that's probably where it becomes an issue. And instead of sitting there and arguing the point back and forth, we actually pulled out this guide here. And I said, well, let's just look at the strengths of each one there. And one of the things that we looked at, she's actually very high on the extroversion piece. And she said, I don't really feel that way a lot of times. So we were able to explore that. She just started a new position. And her conclusion was that she's just not confident yet. So now we have an action plan. So she is very social, and that's what we want in the position. So I did show her that first. And then the second piece is, how do we develop this confidence? Because she doesn't feel like she can talk if she doesn't know what's going on, which makes a lot of sense. But now conveying that to her manager as well and saying, hey, look, this is the situation that we have. Let's build up her confidence. How are we going to do that? So a game plan is formed and we go after it. And, we'll see what happens. But most of the time when you come after it that way, especially if you're doing it right out of the gate, again, she hasn't been in this position very long. But I think for her, hopefully not putting words in her mouth, but she was much more settled after that conversation than she was prior to having that conversation. Because for her being, 24 years old, starting a new position, what's going on? What do I need to do? All those things are just coming to light, and she's feeling inadequate. I'm like, well, you might feel inadequate. I don't want to invalidate your feelings. However, they did hire you for this position for the reason because they want that. And what we need to do is just work with your manager and get you some more confidence. So it's just like anything else. It's like talking to your friends. And that made a lot of sense to her. And I think she went away from that conversation feeling a lot better. At least that's what she said, and you could tell, kind of in her eyes and face. But it's just not a one and done. This is things that these are things that I would recommend doing every quarter. Okay, remember, if we go back to what we said about the disengagement piece of, manager is one of those key points. But if we take that manager and equip them, and you're meeting with your manager once a quarter, and again, some people are like, well, once a quarter, I don't have time to do that. My rebuttal to that is, I don't think you have in this nature, in the job workforce, you don't have the option to not do it. So look at that person and develop them as much as you can, because if you don't, they are going to go someplace else, and they have other options. So doing this every quarter and just sitting down, like, what's new? So you might be asking, well, okay, Eric, that's great. I don't know how to do that. Well, the nice thing about Predictive Index is there are other tools that piggyback on the two things that I've already gone over with you. So there's the job fit. Well, actually, the three things: job fit. So there's the interview guide, there's the coaching guide, there's the development chart that we just went over, and then there's this manager strategy guide, which I think is ingenious, because you don't have to be trained to do this. This is based off people's needs, and we often say, looking at people's needs, platinum rule: treat people the way they need to be treated for maximum productivity and efficiency. Again, going back to what I'm saying, if you do this every quarter with someone, sit down and say, are you getting this in the environment? Am I giving you this as a manager? And actually sit down and plan with them. This is a very caring thing to do. It shows a little bit of empathy. You start to build and garner some trust with that person. Help them understand their position. Okay. And you can reinforce with them, hey, look, this is why we hired you. So it might be that person's different than their manager. They're wired differently than their manager, and they're taking their cues unconsciously from their manager. It's a way for that manager to say, hey, look, we hired you to do this. I don't need you to be me. I need you to be you. So there's that reinforcement. There's the reinforcement of using that personal development chart and saying, hey, where can I, as your manager, help you build confidence in an area? What do you need from me? What am I doing well? What can I and we do better? And what do you need? And you game plan. So this becomes that development plan. It's done every quarter. And the companies that do this well, that do it, at least twice a year. But I want to speak to those ones that I know that are doing it every quarter, because I hear from their employees. This is great. I look forward to that conversation with my manager. Before, it was just a weird conversation, maybe every once in a while. It wasn't very formal. This is a little bit more formal. Sit down. What have we done well? What can we do better? How can I help you? What are the things, and what are we going to follow up with? What are we going to commit to in the next 90 days? If you look at the research again, why these are so beneficial is because we typically have a window of 90 days that we can remember. So we can only remember that far. So if we're only doing things with our employees once a year, we might forget that they've improved throughout the year. So right before we go to give a performance appraisal, they had a bad week, and that's all we can remember. We can't remember the other 6 to 8 months where they were doing really well. They did this job, they did that job, they stayed extra time here, they took some time to develop somebody else. So having these in a folder and going over them every quarter is very beneficial, and it gives you a way to follow up as a manager, as a leader with this person. Did we do this? Hey, but with all that trust going on here, you're taking those engagement scores and lifting them higher and higher. And when people are happy, it's easier to get other people like them inside the company, because they're more apt to go out and refer people to the company, because they like to work there. They're going to bring their friends. And if they're like-minded, they're going to bring other good people in. Hopefully that makes sense. But a lot of people, when I say people, a lot of companies don't do that. They bring people in, just expect them to work, and don't take the time with them. Literally, this only takes 60 to maybe 90 minutes. But it's a good conversation. You can have this over lunch. You can have this at the end of the day. You can have it over coffee in the morning. But great companies can't afford not to do this. So if this isn't in your plan, make this part of your plan. Whether you're using PI, if you're not, get a hold of us. Let us know what's going on. We can help. And any other thing and again, another tool in the toolbox is to use the relationship guide. And I've had a lot of success with many companies using this relationship guide, because you can just plug in 2 different people if they've taken the predictive index. And what it's doing is it's looking at that person's, those 2 people, their relationship strengths. It's looking at the cautions in the relationship, and it's giving them some tips. And again, this is what I would even put in the onboarding folder and revisit it every 90 days. You might not revisit it at length every 90 days, but just look at it. What can we do better? Maybe I'm Evan Elderberry here in this slide, and Kim Kiwi and I have a great relationship, and I'm saying, hey, look, help me understand, because I just had a person on board that, we've made it work. What are some specific things that I should be doing for this person? So you're learning how to work better. You're learning how to take that unconscious competitiveness out of things, and learning how to work consciously complementary to one another. Because you can see, again, you don't have to know what those graphs are, but you can see they're wildly different. These people are either going to butt heads all the time, or they can be complementary to one another and say, hey, look, if we do this job, you handle this, this is what I'm good at. And we create those lanes where we're at our highest and best use. Each of us, and creating those complementary relationships goes a long way, because then you're looking at, hey, look, the 2 of us might be doing the same work as 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 people, because we're so complementary to one another. But it takes work. It does take work. So if you look at that, you think of the relationship guide, just comparing 2 people and discovering how they work best together in the environment. Okay, on to the next piece, which is building high performance teams. So I'm just getting ready to roll this out at a company. So one of the nice, or for a company, one of the nice things about the group analytics that we can do is it's just a bunch of people in a blender. So this is my team. So it can tell me a lot. So if these are all the same people, or these people are in the same position, then we can see, hey, look, where are high performers, where are low performers? The other thing as a manager that it can give me is taking a look at, if this is my team, what do I need to prepare for? So helping managers better prepare for things like even their meetings. Like, do I need to be prepared to put in some time where my folks need to ask more questions. Do they need an agenda ahead of time? How much of an agenda do they need? What do we need on the team? So again, this goes back, if you remember that whole diagram that we started out with around talent optimization, right? This is looking at our talent strategy and seeing if it matches the business strategy. We said one thing, these are the people that we have. Does it match what we're trying to accomplish so we can get the results at the end of the year that we want to get? And I think this is genius. Just looking at this can solve a lot of issues. Like I said, I'm getting ready to roll this out. This group analytic with two different positions inside a company that has multiple people in these roles, and they're experiencing a lot of turnover. So we're gonna look at this and see, what is going on here. What can we look at? Can we get smarter with this data? And we will do that. And you can take it a step further. You can do a team report and just look at, hey, what do we have here? What's going on? And again, you don't have to be trained in predictive index to understand these things. If I say, hey, look, we're trying to roll something out where we're looking at teamwork and employee experience, but I'm looking at my leadership team, and you can see it's quite obvious here. We don't have anybody wired for that. So we might conclude, hey, look, we either need to move that direction as a group, or it's more likely to happen is we need to find out if there are other people around, if there are other leaders we need or can bring in to work on that teamwork and employee experience. Okay, so there's many different ways that we can kind of unwrap this. So if we need more innovation and agility, we look at it that way. What if we need more process? We can't scale. Well, man, look at the leaders that we have that are more wired like that, and do we need to bring in more? Who's going to hold us accountable? And that's where we might look in the results and discipline piece of the team work styles. So there's lots of different ways you can use this inside the predictive index to get those results. So lots of different things you can use. This is how you optimize your workplace talent with predictive index. Lots of other things that you could be using. I hope this is beneficial. We went through a lot of different things, but a couple of things just to kind of reiterate. If you're going to integrate PI into your talent management practices, start from that talent optimization design. So when we look back at the talent optimization design, we're looking at those 4 aptitudes. Does our talent strategy match our business strategy? Do we have the right people in the right roles, right person, right seat? The big thing that I think you need to concentrate on as a company is that inspire aptitude. What are we doing for our people? One of the things that has been wildly successful for some of the companies that were really entrenched in their kind of day-to-day things is they're doing leadership cohorts where we meet with the leaders or high potentials inside the company once a month, take them out, give them some leadership, give them some of these tools, do other things with them to help them be better leaders. And we have some really young, high potential, great talent people in some of these groups. But what we find out is that is increasing not only their engagement, but the engagement of the people that they're working with. And it's, when we do that year after year after year, you can see those engagement scores climb, and it's actually helping their retention as well. So they're keeping people. These people are happy, more productive, more energetic, and they're bringing people into the company that are wired like them. Okay, so look at that. Look at the hire piece again for the job target, the inspire piece. Lots of different things, to really integrate into your talent management practice. The quarterly reviews where you could use the relationship guide, the development graph, that manager scorecard, just to have those conversations. And again, once a quarter, that's what I would recommend integrating it into that as well. And then finally, what we just went over, looking at the team, looking at the group analytics. Is this what we need? Does this group, does that talent strategy match our business strategy? And then going deeper, once you understand that, going deeper into the team dynamics and seeing how do we work as a team? Is this the right team? Who else should be on this team? Do we take somebody off this team and put them someplace else? So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Hopefully it's given you some insight to some things. If you have any questions, my direct number is on the slide right there, 724-622-8351. You can go to our website at centerforvictory.com or email me directly, Eric, ERIC, at centerforvictory.com. If you have any questions, please reach out. Have a great day.